Ludum Dare 54 just came to a close, and Floral Vikings and I succeeded in getting a game in on time. The link is in the thingamajig below if you wanted to check it out. Here's how the game came to be. When they announced the theme of limited space, I forced myself to come up with multiple ideas so that we had more options to pick from. The two most fleshed out ideas were a delivery game where you had limited cargo space and had to choose between carrying the most cargo and equipment that made it easier, and a horror puzzle game where you had to figure out how to escape areas that were becoming increasingly smaller for reasons. Spooky reasons. When Floral Vikings came up with the name S-Cargo for the first game, that sealed the deal. It also helped that it seemed easier. We then proceeded to make it harder. The original plan was to make a 3D voxel game wherein your spaceship picked up the cargo and equipment that were Tetris-shaped pieces and you had to fit it into your grid inventory optimally, and then fly out to the next station through various obstacles limiting the space that you could fly around in. There was going to be this evil space miasma that damaged you without stopping you. There was going to be all this dialogue with characters at each of the stations. You were going to have to dodge asteroids floating around, and at some point a pirate was going to show up and try to destroy your snail ship. And every time you got hit by any of these obstacles, one of the Tetris pieces you stored would go flying, and you'd have to weigh between picking it up again at the cost of time or flying off without it. When you finally got to the station, you were going to have to navigate this corridor to get to the snail mail drop-off bay. And then things started going downhill. I decided it would be a good idea to get sick immediately after we decided what we were going to do. The next morning I tried working through the fevered haze, but we soon realized we had gotten a bit ambitious. By noon, we decided the 3D was complicating things without adding to the gameplay, and so dropped it. Then we decided we better drop the pirate, and the asteroid fields, and the miasma, and the giant complicated station entrances. One of the big ideas we didn't end up dropping was the dialogue. Fortunately, past Gary the Enchanter had made a visual novel in Godot, and so I was able to reference that when working on this one. While we were writing this game from scratch, my mind was preloaded with information that I could refresh by looking at my past games. I'm glad I had that previous game to reference, because I would not have been able to figure out a dialogue system from scratch in time through the brain fog I was operating in. It was 5 p.m. on Sunday and we had a bunch of pieces, but had no actual game. It was at this point that we actually landed on recycling the giant station entrances with just navigating a wormhole between station areas. That left us less than 24 hours to actually implement the primary gameplay loop. We made a test level that night with placeholder boxes to make sure it was workable, and to our relief it was good enough to move forward with. I spent the next morning churning out some art while Floral Vikings designed some levels, and by 3 p.m. that day we had something submittable. And thus we succeeded at Ludum Dare, not only because we submitted a game in time, but because this experience has given me insight in how to game dev better. First, it's vitally important to get a concise primary gameplay loop decided on in the beginning and implemented as soon as possible. If we hadn't overscoped ourselves that first night and instead got a concrete idea of what the actual moment-to-moment experience would be, we could have implemented that quickly and then had more time to iterate on it to dig out the most fun version of it possible. Second, having the experience of having implemented mechanics before saved us a lot of time, rather than having to figure them out from scratch. I'm really glad we had dialogue in this game because I think it gave it a lot of character that it wouldn't have had otherwise. I think if you want to do well in game jams in the future, then make games now in the present. Third, unless you're purposely trying to go for a challenge run, don't get sick. It didn't help. The success didn't stop after we submitted, because now, due to the nature of Ludum Dare, we're getting a bunch of great feedback, which is vital for improvement, but can be really hard to come by if you're a no-name indie game dev like us. And since, as of posting this video, the voting period for Ludum Dare is still going on, I want to extend some of the success to my end of the video friends. If feel free to leave a comment that will help me find your Ludum Dare entry, and if it runs in the browser, I'll try and leave a review for it before the time runs out. Regardless of Ludum Dare though, if you wanted to like and subscribe, I and the algorithm would appreciate that feedback too. Until next time.